in this video, we're going to look at how to use the SOHCAHTOA to work out missing sides and missing angles, and we're going to do these three questions here in one go. Right, so let's get to it then. So in this triangle here, we're asked to work out this side here. Now, before I do anything, okay, just remember SOHCAHTOA only works on right angle triangles. So this is a right angle triangle. That means I can use SOHCAHTOA. And before you do anything, label your triangle. So this is the right angle. So this is my hypotenuse, HYP. And this is the angle we're working with because it's the only one we're told. So this is the angle we're working with. So this side here would be the opposite, OPP, and then the last side would be the adjacent. Okay, so right, so we labeled it correctly. Now we need to decide which one of these three to use. Do we use SOH, or TOA? Which one do we use? And it's dead easy to decide which one we use. So we're asked to work out the opposite. So anything that has an O in it is going to be useful. So O stands for opposite. So we narrowed it down to these two. And then we're told the hypotenuse. So anything that has an H in it is going to be the one we're going to use. So we're going to use this one. Or another easy way to do it is this. The adjacent is the useless side in this one. Sometimes I don't even bother labeling this one because we're not asked to work it out. We're not told anything about it, so we're not actually going to use the adjacent. So any one of these that has an A in it, you can just cross it out. So this is the one we're going to use because it doesn't involve the adjacent, so that's the one we're going to use. So now we have to use SOH to work out the opposite side. So how do we do that then? So this is what we do. Right, so in order to use it, so remember how it works. So it works like this, SOH. Right, so let's kind of get to it. So first of all, we're asked to work out the opposite side. Now, according to the working out triangle, we have to multiply these two things on the bottom. So what does the H represent? Well, that represents the hypotenuse. So I'm going to put times 15. So we're going to work out the opposite. And according to the working out triangle, we have to take the hypotenuse, which is 15, and multiply it by sine and this little thing here. Now, this is really important. The sine, cos, and tan in the bottom corners here always stand for sine of some angle, whether you know it or not. So for example, that cos stands for cos of some angle, whether you know it or not. And this tan stands for tan of some angle, whether you know it or not. So we have to do the hypotenuse times sine of the angle that we're working with. So sine of 26 degrees. Now, another important thing is that when you use the sine, cos and tan button, always put a bracket round the angle. Otherwise you can make a mistake and you'll get the wrong result. So it's sine of an angle, whether you know it or not, cos of an angle, whether you know it, or tan of an angle, whether you know it or not, and always put a bracket round that angle. So that triangle, dead easy to use. It's a bit like distance, speed, time. If you want to work out the opposite, you have to do the hypotenuse times sine of the angle. So the hypotenuse is 15, and then sine 26 is what we've got to multiply it by. So we're going to have to do that on calculator. So if you do it on the calculator, you get let's say 6.58 centimeters. That's how long this side here is. If you didn't get, you need to do it on a calculator so you get the same result as me. If you didn't, it's because your calculator is probably in the wrong setting. At the top, there should be a little letter D or DEG, which stands for degrees. If your calculator has a little R in it, it's because it's in the wrong setting, and that's why you didn't get the same answer as me. So I think you need to press shift mode and then go to angle or something and press it to degrees or DEG, and then that will put it in the right setting, and then you'll get the same result as me. You got to make sure your calculator is in the right setting before you go into any tests, otherwise you're going to get the wrong result. So make sure it's in the right setting. Okay, so just remember, it's sine of an angle, cos of an angle, or tan of an angle. That's what this bottom corner always represents. Now let's look at the other two now real quick. So in this one, we're asked to work out this side here. Now, first of all, let's label it correctly. So this is the right angle. So this would be the hypotenuse. In the future, I'm just going to write H. Now, this is the angle we're working with. So this would be the opposite side to it. So this is our opposite. I'm just going to put O for opposite. And I'm not going to bother labeling the adjacent because the question doesn't ask us to work it out, nor has it been labelled. So first of all, anything that has an A in it, I'm going to cross out, so I'm not going to use that one. I'm not going to use that one, so this is the one we're going to use because it doesn't involve the adjacent. Okay, so we are asked to work out the hypotenuse. Okay, so we're asked to work out the hypotenuse. That's the side that's missing. So what does the working out triangle tell us to do? Okay, so in order to work out the hypotenuse, it says take the opposite side and divide it by sine of the angle that we're working with. So that's sine 50 degrees. And by the way, you don't need to worry about the little degree symbol. It's just sine 50. Sometimes students ask me, well, where's the degree button? There isn't one. So at least I don't think there is. So, okay, so what we need to do to work out the hypotenuse is take the opposite and divide it by sine of the angle. So the opposite, what was the opposite? 23. And then divide that by sine 50. And then, okay, oh, don't forget, put a little bracket around the angle so you don't make a mistake. I tend to use the fraction button because it's easier. So sine 50 divided by that, round it to 2 decimal places. So that would be 30.02 centimeters. That's how long this side here is. Okay, so that's how you used it to work out that particular side of the triangle. Okay, let's go to the last one because the last one's different from all three of them. Okay, so in this one, we're asked to work out a missing angle, this angle here. But before we do anything, we've got to label our triangle and decide which one we're going to use. So this is the right angle, this is the hypotenuse. Okay, this is the angle we're asked to work out. So this is its opposite side. So the only thing we're not working with is the adjacent. So I'm not going to bother labeling the adjacent. So not going to use that one, not going to use that one, going to use that one. Okay, so this one's a little bit different. So we're asked to work out an angle this time round. So how do we do that then? So first of all, in the corner here is where, okay, just to clarify, we're not going to be able to work out this angle straight away. Okay, that's not going to be really kind of good. We're not going to be able to work out this angle straight away. We are going to be able to work out sine of its angle. So first of all, let's write that down first of all. So we'll write down sine of this unknown angle. Okay, that's what this bottom corner represents, is sine of the angle. Remember what I said, sine of the angle, whether you know it or not. So we don't know the angle, but sine of the angle, according to the triangle, is equal to the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. So opposite divided by hypotenuse. So now I'm going to write sine of the angle again. Even though we don't know the angle, it's sine of that angle. Now we do know the opposite, that's 12. And we know the hypotenuse is 20. So what do we do next? Okay, so first of all, if we do 12 divided by 20, that's 0.6. Now, that does not mean that the angle is 0.6. It means that sine, okay, so remember, if you press that sine button, and then the angle, whatever it is, that equals 0.6. So how do we actually work out the angle? Well, we have to do something called the inverse of sine. We have to do the opposite operation to sine. So in order to work out the angle, we have to do sine to the -1 of 0.6. Now, let me just explain to you what sine to the -1 is. For example, when you square something, what is the opposite of square rooting? Well, on the calculator, you would press the square root button to do the opposite. If you cube something, the opposite is you have to press the cube root button. If you add, the opposite is take away. If you multiply, the opposite is to divide, and so on. So if you do sine of something, the opposite is sine to the -1. Now, you need to understand, sine is not a number. It's not something, I see sometimes students doing 0.6 divided by sine, and then they get a maths error and they wonder why. It's because sine is not a number. Sine is like a function, a bit like the square root button. The square root's whatever number you put inside of it. So the sine to the minus 1 does the inverse of whatever number you put inside of it. Okay, so it's not a number. Sine isn't multiplying a, it's doing something to a. And sine to the minus 1 is going to do something to 0.6, a bit like square rooting a number. So all we need to do is to get sine to the minus 1 is press shift sine, so the shift and sine button, type in 0.6 in the bracket, and then this is 36.9 degrees. That's how big that angle is to 1 decimal place. So that's how you kind of work out something to do with sine, cos and tan. Okay, in the next sort of questions we're going to look at like a mixture of them, and so don't shut the video just yet because there's a bit more to come. Okay, let's go through these examples real quick. Okay, so let's do this one here. So this is the right angle, this is the hypotenuse, and this is the angle we're working with. Okay, so this is its opposite side. We don't need that, but let me just put OPP. This is the opposite side, so this would be the adjacent, so ADG. So we're asked to work out the adjacent, and we're told the hypotenuse, and we're not asked to do anything with the opposite. So anything that has an O in it, we're going to cross out. So we're going to use this one. Now remember, you need to know these triangles off by heart. So I'm just going to write CAH like this, just to kind of, because this is what I would do in an exam. So CAH, right, so we're asked to work out the adjacent. So let me do this in a different coloured pen. So we're asked to work out the adjacent, and in order to do that we have to do cos of the angle multiplied by the hypotenuse. So cos of the angle, so that's cos of open bracket 32 degrees close bracket, remember to do that, multiplied by the hypotenuse, which is 15, and that's going to give us this adjacent side. Right, so cos open bracket 32 close bracket times 15, and that is 12.7 centimeters. Okay, that's how long that side is. Okay, let's do this one here down now. Sorry, this one in the bottom left hand corner. Right, so let's get to labeling it first. This is the hypotenuse. This would be the opposite, but we don't need that. And then this would be the adjacent. Right, so anything that has an O in it, we're not going to use that. We're not going to use that. We're going to use this one because it has the adjacent and the hypotenuse in. Okay, so CAH. Right, what are we asked to work out? We're asked to work out the hypotenuse, so we want the hypotenuse. So in order to do that, we have to take the adjacent and divide it by C, cos of the angle that we're working with. So the adjacent is 8, and we're going to divide it by cos of the angle, which is 46, close bracket. Okay, let's work that out. 8 divided by cos open bracket 46 close bracket. Okay, and that is 11.5 centimeters to 1 dp. Okay, that is how long that hypotenuse is, 11.5. Right, let's do the last one. So we're asked to work out this angle here. Okay, so let's label it. This is the right angle, this is the hypotenuse. Okay, this is the opposite, which I'm not going to bother labeling because it's not been labeled on the triangle. We're not asked to work it out. So that's the opposite, and this would be the adjacent. Right, so we're asked to work out the angle. So CAH. So remember, it's cos of the angle, whether you know it or not. So we don't know it in this case. So cos of the angle equals the adjacent side, which is 15, divided by the hypotenuse, which is 34. Now, I'm not going to bother working out 15 divided by 34 because I'm going to get a decimal and I'm going to have to round it, and that's going to cause an error, like a rounding error, so I don't want that. Okay, so in order to work out the angle, I need to do cos to the minus 1. Remember, the opposite of cos is cos to the minus 1 of the other side. Now, the other side is 15 divided by 34. So I'm just going to type shift cos. So what I did was I didn't bother working out what 15 divided by 34 was. I've just put it inside cos to the minus 1 and just done it in one go. Okay, so shift cos to the minus 1 of 15 divided by, shift cos, open bracket, 15 divided by 34, close bracket. Okay, and that tells us that that angle there to 1 dp is 63.8 degrees. That's how big that angle there is. Okay, so we'll just look at the last one, and then, I mean, if you feel confident, tan's pretty much the same. And you might want to have a go at some questions, but I'm just going to do 3 quick questions on tan. Okay, so this is tan, so let's go through it. Okay, so let's do the top one. Right, so this is the right angle, this is the hypotenuse, which we don't want, and this is the angle we're working with. So this is the opposite side, and this x is the adjacent side. Right, so we don't want the hypotenuse, so anything that has an h in it we're going to cross out. We're going to cross that one out, cross that one out. Right, so we're going to use TOA, so T-O-A. Right, so we have to work out the adjacent side. So how do we work out the adjacent side? Well, okay, so to work out the adjacent side, we have to take the opposite and divide it by tan of the angle. So the opposite divided by tan of the angle, which is 28, equals the adjacent. So, okay, so let's do that. What's the opposite side? First of all, let's actually write it in here. So the opposite side is 23 divided by tan 28. Okay, so 23 divided by tan, open bracket, 28, close bracket, comes out to 43.3 centimeters. Okay, so that's how long the adjacent side is. Right, let's do this next one down here, super quick. Okay, here we go. So, right, so this is the right angle, this is the hypotenuse, so we don't want that. So we're not going to use sine or cos immediately, so it's going to have to be that one. So, okay, so this is the angle. Right, so this side is the opposite, and this side is the adjacent. Right, so let's put TOA. Okay, so we're asked to work out the opposite side, and then according to the kind of working out triangle, we need to do tan of the angle. Remember, that's what T stands for. Tan of the angle, which is 27, times the adjacent, which is 8. Right, so that's all we need to do. Tan 27 times the adjacent, which is 8. Okay, so this side here is 4.1 centimeters to 1 dp. That's how long that side is. Now, regarding rounding your question, in an exam, they will tell you how many decimal places to round it. I never round it to a whole number. It's always 1 dp or 2 dps, but they'll tell you in the question. Okay, let's do the last one. So we're asked to work out this angle here. So let's label it. So this is the right angle, that's the hypotenuse, which we don't need. So this is the opposite side, that's the O, and this is the adjacent side. So again, we don't want that, we don't want that, we want TOA. So TOA. Okay, let's just clear some of this annotation. Okay, so TOA. Right, so remember the T stands for tan of the angle, whether you know it or not. I'm going to keep saying it till you remember it. So we don't know the angle, so I'm going to write tan A, because we don't know that angle. Okay, so in the triangle it tells us to work out that one, we have to do the opposite divided by the adjacent. The opposite is 10, and the adjacent is 25. Now, I'm not going to bother doing 10 divided by 25. I'm just going to go straight to the answer. Okay, so to work out the angle, I need to do the opposite of tan, which is tan to the minus 1 of the other side. So that's 10 over 25. Okay, so I'm going to have to do shift tan. 10 divided by 25, and that gives us 21.8 degrees, because remember this is an angle, so that's how big that angle is in that corner. Okay, now just to summarize real quick, thank you for being patient. I know it's gone to 16 minutes, I'm really sorry, but okay, just to summarize, you do need to remember these 3 formulas off by heart. Do need to know them off by heart, so make sure you know them. So remember, I don't tend to remember the formulas, I just write SOH like this, or CAH like this, or TOA. That's how I write SOHCAHTOA, which helps me to remember. But just remember this one's the most important one. That stands for sine of some angle, whether you know it or not, or cos of some angle, whether you know it or not, and tan of the angle whether you know or not. Okay, so thank you for watching, guys. I'm really, really sorry it's gone over 20 minutes, but that's kind of it. Thank you for watching, guys. Best to have a go at some questions now.